I secretly learned my fiancé's language after his mother insulted me. On our wedding day, I used it in my speech to expose her in front of everyone. I am engaged to a beautiful man. He's not from around here. He came to this nation for college, which is where we met. We were in the same program. He's the kindest and most kind guy I know. He always treats me with such love and respect. I couldn't ask for a better spouse. We get along well, and things are usually rather easy between us. I'm head over heels for him. The issue, and it's a major one, is his mother. She doesn't like me, and that has been clear from the beginning. I've tried to be polite and considerate. I've attempted to get to know her, but nothing seems to work. I believe, and my fiancé concurs, that it is because I am white. His mother wished he would marry someone from their own nation. It's not just that she disapproves. She intentionally makes me feel uncomfortable, which is quite difficult. It puts a strain on things, even if my fiancé and I are content. It's like a perpetual shade over our relationship. The first time I met his parents was a complete mess. We went over to their place for dinner, and his mother snubbed me the moment I came in. I tried to say hi and be nice, but she refused to acknowledge me. It was as if I wasn't even present. My fiancé did his best to involve me in the conversation, but his mother refused to speak with me at all. Despite the fact that I knew she spoke English, she spent the entire evening speaking only in her own tongue to her son and husband. It left me feeling quite uneasy and out of place. My fiancé, and even his father, was uneasy about the whole thing. Dinner itself was really silent and tense. I felt like I was invading a private family moment, despite the fact that I was only supposed to be a visitor. I didn't just feel excluded from the talk. I also felt physically separated from them at the table. To make matters worse, as I reached for one of the plates, she took it away and served it to her husband and kid first, ensuring that I was the last to receive anything. My fiancé was very horrified. He apologized repeatedly on the way home. He kept expressing how awful her behavior was, and how sad he was that I had to go through it. He promised me that if things didn't improve, we would have less contact with her. He didn't even wait for my response before apologizing and defending myself. He appeared to be as upset as I was, if not more so. The entire meeting was unpleasant, and it gave me a good indication of what I was in for. Of course, even after that dreadful first meeting, I had to see his mother on several occasions. It was his birthday, and he wanted to celebrate with his family, including me. I understand how much he loves his family. Each time, I found myself battling my own emotions. I wanted to be there for my spouse, but I was afraid to go. I hoped things would improve, but she remained as cold and disinterested as before. It became a pattern. She would point to my hair, features, or clothes and make comments in her home tongue before laughing. It was clear she was making fun of me. She once pointed at my hair and commented on how it resembled a bird's nest. Then she inquired loudly if I even knew how to care for myself, before laughing again. My fiancé became very defensive and began arguing with her. But when I asked him what she was saying, he simply brushed it off and attempted to change the conversation. Later, he revealed that his mother had made a comment about my huge nose and pale skin. He clearly did not want to repeat the hurtful things she was saying. I felt that I was not only being ostracized, but being picked on, which was quite terrible. It's not like I'm a terrible person. I actually think I'm a very decent catch. I'm not trying to brag, but I am considered attractive. I was the valedictorian of my college class, and I actually have a better earning job than my fiancé. It isn't about the money, but it demonstrates that I am responsible and hardworking. We divide all of our expenses. I offer him nice gifts, and I've even started learning to prepare his favorite cuisines from his native country. I am doing my best to demonstrate my dedication to him. I also actively endeavor to simplify our home life. I do a lot of the housework and errands to show him that I'm a partner in all aspects of life, not just the fun stuff. I really tried to win over his mother as well. I purchased Christmas gifts for both her and his father. I gave them a lot of thought, trying to locate items they could enjoy, but we were never invited to their Christmas festivities. His father is usually kind to me, which I much appreciate. The issue is primarily with his mother. It seems like no matter what I do, it is never enough. I recall giving his mother a very fine scarf, and she looked at it with hatred and threw it away. Later, I overheard her telling someone else that it was cheap and ugly, which matched my tastes. Things like that truly appeal to me. It's not limited to his parents' house. At larger family gatherings, such as parties or weddings, she does the same way. She'll scowl at me from across the room before whispering to other relatives, pointing at and discussing me. If I try to approach her, she simply ignores me and walks away. It's so obvious, yet so degrading. It's not like she's hiding anything. She makes a point of physically turning away from me, letting everyone know that she rejects me. I noticed her at one party complimenting another relative's daughter-in-law, remarking how nice and conventional she was, all while utterly ignoring me. It felt as if she was trying to demonstrate to everyone how much superior this other woman was than me simply because she was from the same nation as them. What's more annoying is that I know she speaks English fluently. She is a kindergarten teacher, therefore she has to. She purposefully speaks in her native language to exclude me, making me feel like an outsider in my own fiancé's family. It's as if she utilizes language barriers as a weapon. I recognized that if I truly wanted to connect with my fiancé on a deeper level, I needed to better grasp his culture, including his language. I wanted to be able to share that aspect of his life with him. I figured it would bring us closer. I chose to study his original language. I intended to keep it a secret from him. I anticipated surprise him one day by engaging in a lengthy conversation in his language. I wanted to see the expression on his face. I wanted him to know how much I cared. So I truly dedicated to studying the language. I spent 5 months working on it virtually every day. I looked up every resource I could find online, including YouTube videos and language study programs. I practiced speaking aloud, hoping to get the pronunciation correct. I focused on being able to hold a conversation rather than just acquiring a few phrases here and there. My major motivation was to communicate with and surprise my fiancé. But, to be fully honest, a part of me wanted to know exactly what his mother was saying about me. And, well, I began to understand. It wasn't easy, but after a few months, I was able to understand more of what Mom was saying at family events or when she thought I wasn't listening. I pretended I didn't comprehend anything around her. I just stayed quiet and listened. And what did I hear? It was devastating. It was far worse than I had imagined. All the little comments, murmurs, and laughing were so cruel and intimate. I recall when my fiancé informed his mother that we were engaged. We were in the car, and he had her on loudspeaker. She instantly began ranting about how he was marrying a white woman and how their ancestors would be rolling in their graves. The phrase rolling in their graves made me feel as if I was doing something wrong just by existing. It felt greater than just her dislike for me, like I was going against years of tradition. She stated she was having trouble accepting me. Then she said that if he had to marry a white lady, she wished he had selected someone more homely. She claimed I was too modern to be a decent mother. My fiancé, of course, defended me, but she would not stop. She acknowledged as much. She'll probably raise our grandchildren to be spoiled and disrespectful, unlike children raised in our culture. She's completely unfit to be a mother in our family. That one really hurt. Later, when we went to see his parents to start talking about wedding plans, his father was overjoyed for us. You could feel it on his face. But what about his mother? She was as disapproving as always. While we were there, she began ranting in her own language at my fiancé and his father. But this time, I got everything. She was wishing my fiancé would reconsider the marriage, claiming that an astrologer had foretold a black hole in the family because of me, and that I was infertile. She began fussing about how many of my white relatives would attend the wedding and even recommended removing people from my guest list. My fiancé declined, and they had a heated disagreement. I just stood there, crushed, and knew exactly what she was saying. To top it all off, she lied to my father-in-law, stating I had been bragging about how much more money I made than my fiancé, in an attempt to make me appear terrible. It was all so unfair and untrue. I thought wedding dress shopping may be a good bonding experience, so I invited my future mother-in-law, as well as my mother and sister to join me. I was hoping it would be an opportunity for us to connect and have a good day together. It proved to be anything but that. She was terrible. She made a critical comment about every dress I tried on. She'd roll her eyes, make passive-aggressive comments, and basically make me feel bad. What is the worst part? When I discovered a dress that I simply adored, I felt lovely wearing it. My mother and sister were in tears, telling me how beautiful I looked. What about my potential mother-in-law? She simply looked at me and exclaimed in her native language that it was horrible. I completely understood her. My mother and sister were swooning over me, telling me how beautiful I looked, while his mother kept picking on every dress. It was such a striking contrast. I was surrounded by affection, but I could feel daggers being flung my way. And it wasn't just what she said, but how she said it. She was deliberately attempting to destroy a good time for me. I walked to the restroom briefly, and while I was gone, she began insulting my body in front of my sister. She remarked the clothes didn't fit me well and made other disparaging remarks. I tried to keep it together. However, I ended up crying in the dressing room. It wasn't just sadness, it was fury, frustration, and everything. All of my efforts to be kind seemed to be in vain. It was a moment when I felt absolutely defeated. I kept questioning myself why I was even trying. After that day at the dress shop, I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I couldn't keep letting her abuse me like this. But I didn't want to just yell at her or start a fight. I wanted something more meaningful. I wanted her to understand how much she had hurt me. So I started thinking about the wedding, and then I got this thought. What if I embarrassed her in front of everyone? I understand it sounds horrible. But after everything she'd put me through, I felt I deserved to give her a taste of her own medicine. I intended to punish her once and for all. But then I started to question myself. I'm going to Reddit. Would I be the a-hole if I went ahead with this? Update 1. Wow. Thank you very much for your comments and recommendations. I sincerely appreciate all of the encouragement and humor. It's made me feel a lot less alone in this circumstance. I wanted to clarify a few points based on some of the comments I've seen. First and foremost, I want to make it clear that my fiancé has always stood up for me. He's been tremendously helpful since the beginning. He confronts his mother when she is disrespectful, and he always comforts me when I am unhappy. He is genuinely my rock, and I could not ask for a greater companion. I want everyone to know that he is completely on my side in all of this. He's not enabling her conduct. He's actively opposing it. What about my potential mother-in-law? I suppose the simplest way to characterize her is as a cruel old woman. I don't believe she is particularly racist in a wide sense. I believe she has an issue with me specifically. It is personal. She wanted her son to marry someone from her own background, and I didn't fit the bill. I want to make it obvious that all of this is coming from her. It is not a reflection of her culture or community. I've read requests to report her to the school where she works, but I'm not going to do so. I do not want to ruin her career. I might be furious and hurt, but I don't want to get to that level. Her issue is with me specifically, and it is not fair to punish her professionally for something that occurred in our personal lives. I just want to deal with this situation directly and without inflicting any needless damage. Update 2. Hello again, everyone. I'm writing from my honeymoon. We're blissfully married. I wanted to give you all an update because I've received so many messages and requests. We've been celebrating our love and, let's just say, a little sweet revenge. The wedding day has finally arrived. Everything was gorgeous, and I was overjoyed to be marrying the love of my life. When it came time to deliver speeches, I decided to try something unusual. I began in English, thanking all of our friends and families for being there to celebrate our momentous day. Then, I switched to my husband's native tongue. You should have seen the expressions on everyone's faces, particularly my husband and his family. They were completely shocked. I could see my husband's eyes tear up. I thanked his family in their native language for welcoming me, though in my mother-in-law's case, this wasn't quite true at the moment. But I was building toward something. I explained to them that studying their language was my wedding gift to my husband, a way for me to show him how much I loved him and cherished his culture. He was so moved that he came over and kissed me in the middle of his speech. Then I focused my attention on his father. I thanked him again, in his original tongue, for his generosity and genuine warmth. And then I turned to face my mother-in-law. I thanked her sarcastically for her rejection. I told everyone, in her own tongue, about all of the insults, attempts to exclude me, and nasty things she had said and done. I told them about the heinous insult she made regarding my wedding outfit. I explained how she informed everyone that I was infertile. I could see her face growing redder and redder. She was obviously embarrassed. I continued. I also want to publicly address the false claim my mother-in-law made about me bragging about my income. I replied that this was a pure fiction, intended to make me appear bad in front of her family. She was complete rubbish and a piece of garbage that had been picked up from a dumpster. After discussing the specifics of what my mother-in-law had done, I extended the message. Still speaking in her own tongue, I stated that skin color and ethnicity should not be considered when it comes to love. I emphasized how much effort I had put into learning their language and adopting my husband's culture since it was vital to me to be involved in all aspects of his life. Then I explained how my mother-in-law's behavior, her isolation and degrading remarks, had only served to widen the distance. I looked at her straight and calmly warned her that if her behavior persisted, she would have no access to any future children we might have. I made it clear that I would not tolerate my children being subjected to such hatred and discrimination. My hubby was really proud of me. He subsequently told me that he had never felt greater love for me than in that moment, when I stood up for myself and our future. I simply ignored my mother-in-law for the remainder of the evening. I did not want to satisfy her with any more replies. She, on the other hand, was visibly enraged. She began arguing with my father-in-law and husband. Eventually, she stormed away. My husband stated he was confident she would think twice about disrespecting me again. But the nicest part was the reaction of other relatives. Many of them approached me afterwards, complimenting my language skills and expressing how thoughtful it was of me to learn their language. They told me how much this meant to them. For the first time, I felt like I belonged. That I was a true member of the family. I thoroughly loved the remainder of the wedding and had a strong sense of empowerment. I believe I proved my point and received the vengeance I sought. I felt as if a big weight had been lifted. Update 3. Hello again, everyone. We just returned from our honeymoon, and I had a lot of voicemails from my mother-in-law. My husband indicated he would support anything I decided to do, whether I called her back or ignored her entirely. Honestly, my first thought was to ignore the calls. I was still upset and angry, and I wasn't sure if I was prepared to talk to her. But, after some thought, I decided to give her one last shot. I called her back, and we decided to meet. When I saw her, she appeared different. She was nervous and appeared apologetic. Then, for the first time, she issued an official apology. She stated that she was really angry after the wedding, specifically after my speech, but that she had some time to contemplate. She stated that a number of relatives had called her out on her behavior, which made her realize how terribly she had acted. She stated that she had treated me harshly and unfairly. She recognized that I had made a genuine attempt to embrace their culture, learning the language and all. She made no particular apologies for the worst things she had said, such as calling my clothing awful or claiming I was infertile. That bit was somewhat skimmed over, which I noticed. But it was a general apology, and it appeared honest. She added that my husband is her only kid and that she has always been quite protective of him. She stated that she had always imagined him marrying someone from their home country, and that she struggled to accept me since I did not fit her expectations. She apologized for making me feel uncomfortable and pledged to be more tolerant. I calmly listened to what she said before accepting her apology. I told her I wanted to move on and try to improve our relationship. I admired her candor and willingness to attempt to change. However, I made it plain that I had some doubts. It's not like everything is instantaneously fine now. This is more of a cautious step forward, and while I'm hopeful she'll change, I'm not completely persuaded. After the apology, we actually began talking, albeit in her native tongue. She told me stories of my husband when he was a little boy, and it felt good, like we were finally connecting, perhaps for the first time. I could tell she was trying, so I decided to try too. There were still some little issues, such as her avoidance of staring me directly in the eye for too long, which suggested she wasn't totally at ease yet. Then there was one time when I prepared supper and she tried to compliment me, but it came off as a little backhanded. She said, "This dish is actually quite good, for a white person's attempt. It's almost as good as how we make it." It was better than an insult, I suppose, but it still had a sting to it. I understand that this upgrade may not meet everyone's expectations. Some of you undoubtedly wanted me to cut her off totally or continue the feud, but I believe I made my point at the wedding. I stood up for myself and told her, in front of everyone, that her actions were unacceptable. Right now, all I want is a drama-free family life. I want to move forward with enthusiasm and give this a genuine shot to be a new beginning. I believe her own family's reaction was what finally convinced her to rethink her mind. She claimed that many relatives called her after the wedding to tell her she was in the wrong. I believe she eventually recognized how biased and unfair she had been. But, and this is key, I understand how difficult it is to break old habits. I am giving her the benefit of the doubt. I am willing to try, but one incorrect move, one return to old rudeness, and the truce will be broken. I will not hesitate to defend myself again if necessary. I hope for the best. We'll see how this goes. My spouse and I deserve to live happy and tranquil lives, therefore let us pray for that. So, that is where things stand. My mother-in-law and I had a heart-to-heart and are ready to try to start over. I will keep you all updated. I have big news for everyone. I am pregnant. My husband and I are very pleased to begin this new chapter in our life. We can't wait to meet our little one. And I am pleased to say that my relationship with my mother-in-law has continued to improve. Our relationship has undergone a significant positive adjustment. She is a lot more accepting and friendly to me now. She genuinely spends time with me, offers to help with things, and even gives me advice, some of it unsolicited, of course, but I'll accept it. I attempt to reciprocate by being understanding and upfront with her. Both my mother and mother-in-law have been wonderful. They both check in on me on a frequent basis to ensure that everything is going well. They've even worked together to help us set up the baby's nursery. It's lovely to see them bond like that. We actually feel like we're forming one huge, joyful family. However, there are still small reminders that things are not perfect. We were talking about baby names the other day, and I suggested a few that I thought were cute. My mother-in-law scoffed and said, "Those sound so American, wouldn't you want something a little more cultured?" It was a minor remark disguised as a suggestion, but it still hurt a little. It's as if those old biases are still present, just below the surface. My husband continues to be extremely supportive. He's relieved to see his mother making an effort, and he's as excited about the baby as I am. What about my father-in-law? He has been wonderful. He's building a baby rocker for the nursery and has already promised to build a treehouse for the little one when they grow up. I am deeply grateful for his love and support. Overall, things are significantly better than they were before. I'm optimistic about the future and hope that my relationship with my mother-in-law will continue to improve. I'm looking forward to a future full of love, and hopefully, no more drama. Everyone seems to be in a much better mood right now. We're very excited about our little one. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.